A band I respect for taking risks and toying with new ideas, but the execution?
Wow, that is special.
Today we are ranking the albums of Bring Me the Horizon, and we're starting with This Is What the Edge of Your Seat Was Made For in 2004. Now, I don't generally cover EPs, but this band's discography is a little bit shorter, so I figured, what the hell, this was their first release, very much following the metalcore trends of the time. Just 4 songs, and they're all pretty derivative. I listened to a lot of music like this, especially from 2000 to 2004, and this just doesn't really offer anything new, nor are the songs particularly engaging, even from a recycled standpoint, in my opinion. Not terrible, but if I was ranking metalcore music from this era, this would probably be way down the list. For here, I'm going to put it at okay. Then we got their first LP in Count Your Blessings in 2006. Now, despite being a little late to the game and getting started, this is really a solid debut and also one of the earlier examples of deathcore becoming a thing and hitting the mainstream. This dropping a year before Suicide Silence's The Cleansing, but still after some of the kind of proto-deathcore bands like the Red Chord and Despised Icon. I don't think that this record holds up nearly as well as any of those. In fact, this feels really quaint going back to it now, especially given the production, but I still enjoy it quite a bit. Pray for Plagues really setting up the pit from track 1 and then picking up the speed on Tell Slater Not to Wash His Dick, which is one of the most 2000 song titles ever. Lots of At the Gates core energy on the riffs. I also hear a lot of the Black Dahlia Murder influence, among other things. I Used to Make Out with Medusa is also a bit of an old classic. I can respect again that they've been the type of band that prefers to experiment, and realistically, if they just kept with this sound, it would have gotten tired pretty quickly. But as a metalcore kid back in the day, I still connect with this on a certain level, so it is going to enjoyable. Then we got Suicide Season in 2008. First album via Epitaph Records and already moving out of the more deathcore sound of the debut. The vocals are more screams than death growls this time around, and while that's not an issue in and of itself, I find Ollie's particular scream on this to be kind of grating and monotonous. It's all emotion with very little technique. Like, even the singles don't do a ton for me. Chelsea Smile has some solid riffs, and I like the atmosphere from the strings, but the vocals just feel like a failed attempt at what Under Oath were doing much more successfully. It Was Written in Blood has a great bass part and more solid guitars, but ultimately makes me wish I was listening to a stronger post-hardcore band like Me Without You or Touche Amore. Death Beneath also has a fun guitar hook, and Sam Carter of Architects, still in his early years, makes an appearance on The Sadness Will Never End. I can see why it got mixed reactions at the time. I know some people really seem to love this album, but me personally, it's just kind of okay. They followed that up with There Is a Hell, Believe Me, I've Seen It. There Is a Heaven, Let's Keep It a Secret in 2010. Speaking of Architects, I hear a lot of that DNA seeping into this album, and this back when it still would have been a compliment instead of an insult. In fact, this is just a year after Hollow Crown and still a few more years out from my favorite Architects albums. I still have some of the same issues with Ollie's vocal performance, but I do think it works better here, and I especially love the moments of clean vocals. The track Fuck in particular stands out to me in that department, with Josh of You, Me at 6 guesting. Really though, I like most of this album. It's better written than the last one, with seemingly more thought into overall orchestration, and the riffs go hard on the likes of Alligator Blood, Visions, and the appropriately titled Anthem. Josh Scogin of Norma Jean, The Chariot, and 68 fame also makes an appearance on raging D-beat closer The Fox and the Wolf. Don't Go and Blessed with a Curse get a little cheesy, but overall, again, I enjoy this one all the way through. It is one of their best, I would say. Then we got Sempiternal in 2013. Now, this is the one where even I can see people who generally don't like this band say that this was their big moment. This is the first album with Jordan Fish providing keys, and he really makes his presence known right from the top with the kind of Linkin Park sounding elements on Can You Feel My Heart. I also hear Ollie really improving his vocals here. It's still very Under Oath, but it's like good Under Oath now instead of being grating. And just overall, I can hear them both expanding on and further tightening the ideas and experimentation from the previous record. Love the punky drumming and overall catchiness of the House of Wolves. Empire feels like another anthemic Architects track. Shadow Moses and Antivist are bangers. Love the strings on the angry and epic Crooked Young. Notably, it was produced by Terry Date, who has produced some of my favorite albums, including White Pony. Number 11 on US Billboard 200 and number 3 on the UK album chart. And like I said, it was pretty well liked both among critics and fans. There are still a few moments on this one I don't love, but again, it's definitely among my favorites. Great balance of a lot of different elements here, so this one is also going to best, if not their best. They followed that up with That's the Spirit in 2015. Genre swapping again here, pretty much ditching metalcore altogether, this time in favor of more of a pop rock approach. Right off the bat, I don't care for Doomed. This is that really drifty, kind of bland and forgettable side of the genre I find really boring and kind of overproduced. Happy Song and Throne have a little bit more punch to them, but it's still got that glossy, electronic, kind of Imagine Dragons quality to it that I tend to chide Architects for so much now. I'm all about bands playing with genres. The Callous Dowboys, again, comes to mind off the top of my head every time I think of that. The issue here is, in my opinion, it's not the change. It's just that the songs are just so boring and make zero connection for all of the implied emotion. True Friends is kind of fun. I like the strong hook and the vocals remind me a bit of The Used at times. Number 2 in US and UK overall, well received critically, but I'm just not a big fan of this one at all, so it's going to meh.
I don't care what everyone likes.
Then we got Amo in 2019. Mantra is a disappointing opener in that the opening riff kind of sounds like later Nine Inch Nails, but ends up leading into more bland pop directions. And they only lean further that way with this album. Once more, I feel the need to say that that could be fine. I really like Poppy's I Disagree, just for instance, for a kind of mild comparison. But this just isn't nearly as engaging, in my opinion. Tracks like Medicine and Mother Tongue feel AI generated for a doctor's office waiting room. Even collabs that could be interesting, like Grimes on Nihilist Blues and Danny Filth on Wonderful Life. What a waste with that one. They just end up feeling really generic in terms of songwriting. I share some of the same criticism I have with Sleep Token in that the different styles feel like they clash instead of coalescing into something bigger than the sum of their parts. This is the type of album I'd find much more entertaining with a reaction from Brad Taste in Music. Anyways, number 1 in the UK, and it won a Grammy for Best Rock Album, at least not metal, I guess. But yeah, this one also going to meh. Don't really care for it. I think it's worse than the last one. That one was boring. This one was kind of painful.
Am I so out of touch? No, it's the children who are wrong.
Next up, we got Music to Listen to in 2019. Now, depending on who you ask, this is not really a full LP and more of an extension of material from Amo, even though it's actually longer than any of their other albums at over 75 minutes. It's mostly electronic, kind of vibing music ranging from house to ambient with lots of instrumentals, something you can kind of put on in the background. A Devastating Liberation borders on sounding like it belongs on the Blade Runner soundtrack, which is definitely not something I would have expected to say about this band. There's also a collab with Halsey, among a few others. That track is a decent one too. I actually think it's better than any of the collabs on Amo. Nothing amazing, but I think this is a lot more interesting and listenable than the last two. Honestly, I'd go back to this and kind of play it while I'm working, and in some respects, I think it's better than these, which I'm sure I'm gonna get some shit for in the comments, but hey, fight me.
Let the hate flow through you.
By the way, if you're enjoying the video, be sure to hit the like button. If you're hating the video, hit the dislike button. I don't care either way, but comment your own rankings too. This is just my opinion. People get so butthurt about things for no fucking reason. This is what makes music fun. Also, consider subscribing because I do videos like this at least twice a week. But that brings us to Post-Human Survival Horror in 2020.
This is a war.
It's a parasite. Got a feeling it's coming 'cause you know that it's coming for you.
The first of what was meant to be a series of 4 releases, and I heard a lot of talk about it when it came out, but never really gave it my full attention until now. Getting a little heavier again here on par, I'd say, with Sempiternal to an extent, which is also appropriate given Mick Gordon's involvement. Dear Diary is another very Architect-sounding track, but unfortunately now I'm comparing it to their last few albums.
Ah, that's a shame.
But it's not full-on metalcore either. They're very much trying to fuse that with pop influences of the more recent material. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Parasite Eve I'll give credit for having a a very infectious chorus that always ends up getting stuck in my head, but unfortunately the rapping gives me cringy Ronnie Radke vibes. Teardrops just feels like another Imagine Dragons outtake. Obey with Youngblood is also pretty corny, but it has its moments with the kind of industrial rock elements. Kingslayer is probably the best song on the album, thanks largely in part to the baby metal parts. Ollie's lyrics really feel phoned in, unfortunately. It's an improvement from Amo, but it's still kind of a mess. I continue to respect the desire to experiment, but the execution, again, is just still not quite there. It's just a lot of stuff kind of slapped together, feeling very haphazardly. And I hear some people in the comments, like, agree with me on that. So I'm not alone, but I know there are people who also love it, which is fine. It's fine. This is going to solid. And that brings us to Posthuman, NeX GEn in 2024. Now, Lost is case in point what I'm talking about when I say I'm down for a pop song if it's good. I don't care who makes it. Just very fun fusion of pop punk and electronic that's kind of like a cross between My Chemical Romance and the Postal Service. I will say, though, that I was humming the chorus hook and a kid pointed out to me that it's almost the This Is Halloween melody, and now I can't unhear it. Anyways, similar vibes for the incredibly upbeat and chiptunes injected Top 10 Statues That Cried Blood, giving some 4 Years Strong as well. This is ending up kind of being one of my favorite songs on the album. I could also totally hear Strangers and Kool-Aid fitting right in on the radio in the 2000s, and A Bullet with My Name on It has me feeling nostalgic for peak era Under Oath. There's also Limousine with Aurora for something a little bit more drifty and atmospheric before the breakdown hits at the end, definitely getting some more than mild Deftones energy on that one. And then talk about interesting collabs with Amen, bringing together Lil Uzi Vert and Daryl Palumbo of Glassjaw. As a big fan of the latter, it was nice to hear his contribution, but the Lil Uzi verse really brings down an otherwise pretty fun and heavy track.
I hope you have fun.
Now, as for the stuff I don't really care for, I think it opens on a somewhat weaker note. I think the interludes sometimes just feel like they don't necessarily need to be there. Dark Side feels a little corny and half-baked. It's not terrible, but just sort of eye-roll inducing, and I'm just so sick of the lyric, I can't trust myself tonight.
Oh god, how embarrassing.
NA gives me way too much of like a 21 Pilots energy, but it's not without its fun, heavier moments and a pretty infectious chorus. The lyrics kind of make me chuckle sometimes. R.I.P. Dustcore Remix and Puss E both feel like throwaway tracks, but Die For You really makes me cringe and stands easily as my least favorite of the bunch. And then Dig It feels a little bit out of place as this big dramatic sounding conclusion to an album that never really feels like it earned that level of gravitas. Overall, I do think that this is one of the band's better albums though, and that they are finding a firmer footing in all of this mixed genre play. The execution is much stronger here. I will say though that if I see similar comments like on Sleep Token where people are acting like this is somehow like inventing anything new, it'll probably annoy me to an extent because virtually every single sound here can be traced back to the bands I've already made comparisons to and more. That said, pretty strong effort, if inconsistent in quality. I think that there's a really strong like 40-minute album in here if they were to trim it down. All in all though, I'm putting it at enjoyable. Y'all check out this playlist for more metalcore rankings or this video for your specific YouTube recommendation, whatever that mystery might be. Again, consider liking, subscribing, commenting, but that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.